Mr. Motz for 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, witnesses, for being here, and thank you to both of your organization's frontline members who are boots on the ground to stand in the gap at our borders and across this country. So thank you for that. We know that through an order paper question that was submitted, that the Liberals lost track of 30,000 individuals scheduled for deportation, which is troubling in itself. How can something like this possibly occur? Specifically, 29,730 some who are on wanted, warrants for by immigration authorities, and they fail to appear. So how does this happen?
So on removals, indeed, you're right. The removals inventory that we have right now is significant. It's not static. So I will start by saying that. And last year we removed over 16,000 people, the most in a decade, and we're on track to do the same this year. Our officers are very focused on removals. So when somebody has gone through the immigration process and they are not granted status, sometimes they've been here for years. And so it will be time for them to be removed, but it will take a bit of time. The school year will finish and so on. And so just to say that our expectation is that people leave when they are not granted status, and indeed many do.
But keep in mind, ma'am, that in the next 2 years, 2.4 million visas are due to expire. So how do we as a country expect to have the people that should be leaving under those orders be leaving when we can't keep track of the ones we've got now at only 30,000?
Yes. So there's the people that will leave voluntarily. There's the people that CBSA needs to help leave, and I say that not euphemistically, buy their ticket, perhaps put them in an immigration detention center because we are concerned they will abscond. And then those that are investigators and errand staff are looking for all the time. And so to say that we are putting in a big effort, as we did this year, to increase by 59%. But as you say,
there's more to do. There's a lot more to do.
There's always more.
So let me move on to we've seen in the media and know that the Americans have seen a huge increase in the number of people coming from Canada into the United States illegally. Between 2002 and 2022 and 2024. It's estimated that increase was 82% to roughly around 19,000 people in that 2 year. And in fact, about a 680% increase from 2015 when this government took effect to now, Canadians, illegally crossing the border into the United States. Why? How would you recommend we reverse this or mitigate this trend?
So some of it was mitigated with the imposition of a partial visa on Mexico and recent decisions by IRCC and the minister to tighten visa requirements and to end a process that was providing a temporary public policy for temporary resident visas. So those have all had a material impact from what CBSA has seen, and we continue a broad.
Okay, so I want to continue on with the Canadians or people from Canada illegally entering the United States, but of greater concern than that, and that is concerning in itself. There's nearly 1,200 people on various terror watch lists who have been stopped by U.S. authorities entering the United States from Canada, and by contrast, the same people on terror watch lists entering the United States from Mexico in that same time period of 3 years was, right around 200. So, it's concerning. Like, so why are U.S. Border Patrols able to, interdict these individuals, and we seem to have a problem? And I'm going to get to the question of how do these people get in Canada in the first place in a minute.
So I'll begin by saying the way in which the U.S. reports on their data is a subject of discussion. So a certain number of those people, when they say interdicted or encountered, are people going through a port of entry and turned back to Canada. And that happens going the other way all the time. So that's the system working. And, what they say they're on a terrorist watch list. So I don't have information in those specific databases, but I think it's important to
But
understand.
you have the access to those databases, do you not?
We do.
Yes.
And these are people that the Americans turn around.
Right. And
And
so
so-
then my next question would be,
I'm
so
so
we have,
So sorry, the time is up.
Oh, I'll have to
Get
use the
back
next
to it.
round.
Yes,
Stay
thank you.
tuned.
I will go to Mr. Motz for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, I just want to change gears from my last and if I line of questioning. If I got time, I'll come back to it. Recently, the Minister of Public Safety was here and indicated to this committee that he's working on a plan to strengthen our borders. And Commissioner, you had indicated as well that it was reported in the National Post that you had presented the government with a plan to bolster the country's border security. Can you kind of describe what that plan looks like from the RCMP perspective? And I also want to ask Mr. Gorman, for both of you, like, what developments have been made since the minister's meeting with us here a couple weeks ago on the plan, and what is it looking like, and how's it rolling out, and what does it look like moving forward?
So for us, what we've briefed the minister on is really to increase our capabilities when it comes to technology, evergreening technology that we have, increasing our resources, and this has already been said by the minister publicly, and having more ability when it comes to surveillance with by means of drones or helicopters. There is an appetite also to, as what I said, when increase the resources, we have to be mindful that like any other organization, we have limited resources, but how can we benefit from maybe other organizations by working together and having additional people at the borders?
Actually, that would be almost the same answer I would give insofar as that we are working extremely closely on a day-to-day basis with the RCMP as we carry out our mandate at ports of entry, and the RCMP does it in between. And so the extent to which they benefit from technology, we know what new technology is out there and how that would help us increase the amount of seizures that we're able to.
Okay, fair enough. So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's not necessarily a specific plan other than we're going to capitalize on some evergreen technology that we already have. We're going to maybe put some more boots on the ground there. We're going to use some other technologies like drones or those sort of activities along the border. Is there a plan to develop bilateral agreements with the United States and partner in some of those border processes? I mean, I'm not seeing the minister says we've got a plan, or we're going to develop a plan, and yet, we're bolstering a plan we already have, or we're doing something even bolder than we're doing now.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I would leave it to the minister to announce his plan, and as he said, he's consulted the provinces. But just I have to respond to your comment about agreements with the U.S. just because I don't want it to be understood that we don't have them.
Right.
We have them, information sharing, and we're increasing them and operationalizing them. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear that we do absolutely have agreements, multiple agreements with Customs and Border Protection, with the DEA, with the ATF, with HSI, sorry for the acronyms, but I suspect you know
Right,
what they
yeah.
are. So those agreements are well in place.
So, I mean, as part of the plan, and I don't know whether the minister has, apparently he's had conversations with provinces. Was part of the plan to include or have provinces step up, like Alberta made the announcement this afternoon, putting resources, manpower, technology, and other things on the border, spending $30 million to augment the resources there along in Alberta. Other provinces, I understand, are looking at doing also similar things along the border. Is that part of the plan that the government is talking about? Can any of you speak to that?
I can't speak about the conversation that the minister has had with his counterparts in different provinces. What I can say is that public safety at the deputy minister's level has a weekly call. Aaron and I are on the call with the deputy ministers from across the country, And throughout the calls, there's a strong appetite to see how they can help. And the Premier of Alberta announcing that they are looking at mobilizing 51 officers. We welcome that. Obviously, as I said earlier in the committee, this is a shared responsibility. And we all want what's best for Canadians and ensure that there's a safe and secure border. So go ahead.
So, sorry, Commissioner, that's great, and I applaud the Premier of Alberta for moving that direction. Now, how do you plan with CBSA and the RCMP, who also patrol and are part of the border security there on a very vast border, I might say, because I have all the border crossings there that matter in Alberta. How do you intend to incorporate so that you're not working against each other? So you share intel, you communicate together, you are on operations together. How do you plan on doing that?
Answer, please.
Oh, sorry.
No different how we're doing it right now in the province of Quebec, where we're joined to the hip with Les Sautés Quebec, and we're collaborating together and we share the information. You might have joint teams, joint command teams to make sure that everybody knows what each other's doing, and at the intelligence sharing at the fast pace in real time.
I would encourage you guys to make sure
Thank
that
you.
happens in all the provinces.
Thank you, Mr. Motz.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, so Mr. Motz with 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just one question. I want to go back quickly to the people on the terror watch list who, the U.S. has intercepted down there. What have we done here in this country to tighten our border security so these terrorists aren't admitted in the first place?
So the scenario you cited were people going to the U.S. and being
I'm talking
turned
about
back.
the ones that they're in Canada already.
Right.
And so what are we doing to make sure that those on terror watch lists aren't allowed to continue to enter Canada?
Okay, but the statistics of people that the U.S. encounters and turns back, they may be Canadian as well. So I wouldn't take that whole number and say they are all foreign nationals into the country. So
I would agree. I would agree with that assessment.
And so to your point, your question, which is for those who have come from abroad who are foreign nationals in Canada being turned away. So certainly our colleagues from Immigration and Refugees and Citizenship would be well placed, but they have tightened up their visa requirements. Mr. McCrory can talk maybe a bit about the security screening process, if you'll.
Okay, yeah.
So yes, so I like to think of it as layers of defense that start prior to the border, and that's where, for example, IRCC requires a visa, and a portion of those are referred to us for security clearing. Okay. I think we did 34,000 applications last year, and had a non-favorable recommendation about 800 of them. Our national targeting.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you for a minute because we've heard some of these numbers before, and I know we all need to do. We all can agree we need to do a better job. But I just want to put a motion on notice before I pass the rest of my time to Mr. Lloyd. Chair, I'd like to put this motion on notice. Whereas break-and enters against small businesses in Toronto have risen 19% in the last year, and the Ottawa Police Service is warning of an alarming rise in residential break-and enters, the committee undertake a study on the issue of break-and enters and home invasions in Canada of not less than 3 meetings, and that the committee report these findings and recommendations to the House. And I would turn the remaining of my time over to Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Motz. Mr. Lloyd, you have just under 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I also will be putting on notice of motion. Whereas new data shows that homicides in Canada have increased 27%, and the homicide rate has increased from 1.71 to 1.94 per 100,000 Canadians since 2015. The committee undertake a study on the causes of homicide in Canada of not less than 3 meetings, and that the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House. With my remaining time, we know that where are these transnational organized crime groups majority coming from? Like what countries are they tied to generally?
You have the organized crime group based on CISC's report, 2024 report. You have organized crime groups that work within the country, and you have a percentage of, and I don't have the exact number, but you have a number of groups that have international ties, if you wish. When I look at, when we were talking about fentanyl earlier, we know that the Mexican cartel has a strong presence and are involved in the making and distribution.
Thank you. Maybe this is a question best for the CBSA. Is can someone tell us what percentage of import containers are scanned at our ports, and what percentage of import containers are scanned at land crossings, and what percentage of containers are scanned at rail crossings?
So I don't have the percentage, and we would typically not speak publicly about how we do our targeting and the numbers we scan. So it depends on our risk. It depends on the information that we've received. So generally,
We did have a representative from the union that said that there's a 0% chance that anything will be scanned at a rail crossing. Is that true?
yeah, again, disappointing that they felt the need to put that information out there without any more context. So I'm going to ask Mr. McCrory to address that quite directly. Thank you for the question.
So all goods coming into Canada need to be reported to the CBSA, and as the president alluded to, we do a risk assessment on all those goods. We also have targeting on certain modes that allow us to target. What I would say is that in any mode, when we have suspicion, either based on the targeting, our intel, or our risk assessment, or based on the experience of well-trained border services officers, we will pull that.
Now, we know that the
Conveyance
U.S.
assigned
discloses
search.
their percentages. Is there a reason why they can disclose their percentages, but Canada does not?
As I've suggested, we get data on all material coming into the country. We use that data to perform the risk assessments, and we prefer not to talk about how many actually will undergo an examination, because we don't want to give away our methodologies.
Would it be a number that Canadians would consider high, or a number that Canadians would consider low?
I think Canadians should take solace in the fact that we do a risk assessment on everything coming into the country.
Thank you very much. And